VLPSos here. This is a video lesson on installing the Python programming language. This video is intended to be paused to give you time to catch up. I'm going to be reading and following the step-by-step instructions on the file called Language Installing Instructions. And it begins with making a Python class folder on your desktop. I'm going to right click and choose New Folder and name that folder Python Class. We're going to store all of the files that we create in this programming class in this single folder so that it's easy to keep organized. And we want to put that folder on our desktop. Next instruction, download the language installer folder shared with you on Google Drive. Unzip it and place the unzipped folder inside the Python class folder that we just made. On Google Drive, you should find a file shared with you called Language Installer. You want to download that folder by right-clicking on it and choosing Download. When you do, it should have an icon at the bottom of this window that you can right-click on and choose Show in Folder to get to it. It's a zipped folder. You'll need to extract with a right-click menu, Extract All, and unzip that folder in its location. When you do, it will create a folder that inside has a folder called Language Installer. I'm going to do that now by deleting the one that was already installed previously, right-clicking and choosing Extract All. I'm not going to modify the name of the folder just yet. I can see that the unzipped language installer folder has been created. I want to go into it and find the folder called Language Installer that doesn't have the complicated name. Look inside of it. I see that I've got some files there. One of those files is going to be the language installer that we're going to use. But we want to move this whole language installer folder and put it into our Python class folder so that the installer program is with all of the files that we're going to use for this class. Going back to the instructions. Next, I want to double-click or launch the Python 3.8.7 AMD64 file and choose Install Now to make all the recommended choices and then close when the setup is successful. And hopefully it will be successful. So in the Python class folder, in the language installer folder, I found the Python 3.8.7 AMD64, which is an installer package. There's a second one, Python 3.4.4, that if the first doesn't work, then you should try. Double-clicking on it will run it. What you see here is a modified setup because the language has already been installed on my computer. You would choose Setup and then follow the simple instructions until setup is successful and then close this window. Next, in the directions sheet it says, if problems arise, or if you have issues, then different install packages may be found at python.org. Also ask your instructor for help. I'm going to show you the python.org website. If you navigate to python.org on the internet, you see the website that offers the language for free. Python is open source, continually being developed. And if an install package doesn't work for you, you can go to this site and under the downloads, find downloadable versions of Python. One of these is guaranteed to work on your operating system. If you need help with it, ask your instructor. the 3.8.7 version of Python is currently the most up-to-date. The second one you want to try if 3.8.7 doesn't work is 3.4.4. It's been around for a few years and is very stable. Back to the instructions, and this one can be challenging because our computers are very different. We want to find or navigate to where Python was installed on your computer. This location can be wildly different on different computers and involve hidden files. It's best to look for a file called idle and open its location. We're going to use the strategy of finding the idle file in just a moment, but I want to show you how complicated it can be to find the Python folder. If I go to my computer's navigation, there's many ways to get there. The drive, in my case C, has lots of folders in it. We want to look for the folder called Python, or Python 3.8, which is the version that we just installed. I don't see it here. It could be in a program files folder. I'm looking for that file and I can't find it. And in fact, it can be very challenging to find the Python folder. Look for it on your computer. If you don't find it, then we'll use this trick. There is a file called idle that is a part of all the files in the Python language. And it's very likely that in your start menu, it installed access to that idle file, idle spelled I-D-L-E. If you can find it in your start menu and right-click it, choose More until you find the open file location and select that. You're opening the file location of this file called idle. And what it gave us is a window, and it showed us that the idle file in my case is actually a shortcut, and it's located in the path of that C drive users then my name, app data, roaming, Microsoft Windows, start menu programs, Python 3.8. This file here is a shortcut. So I want to know where the original was installed that this is a shortcut to. So I'm going to right-click it and again open file location of that shortcut. And finally, I was able to see that this program is installed in the app data folder, local programs, Python 3.8. So I found where the Python 3.8 folder is. I'm going to click on the tree that includes the Python folder and observe that in the Python folder, I have the Python 3.8 folder, which is the one that contains the language files for the Python 3.8 programming language. I want to right-click on that and make a shortcut. I'm going to try it again. Right-click and create a shortcut. Drag the Python 3.8 shortcut and put it into my class, my Python class folder. I'm going to close this window and go into the Python class folder and then click on that shortcut. I now have a way in my Python class folder of quickly going to the location on my computer where the Python language is installed. We want to be able to do that quickly. Next thing that we want to do is find the idle program, not the shortcut to it as before. So I'll show you how we got there again. In the start menu, I'm looking for idle. I use that trick of right-clicking and opening its location. In my case, I saw that it was a shortcut, and I don't want the shortcut to idle in this case. So I right-click and open the location, open file location of the shortcut. That's how I got into my Python folder. I want to make sure that I'm in the Python 3.8 folder, and I'm going to navigate to the idle program and find it in the lib folder, lib, and then the idle lib folder inside of that. I'm scrolling down until I find two files. Well, there are three, but there are two files with the same icon called idle. I'm going to double click the first and notice that two windows are brought up, a black one behind and a white one. I'm going to close that white window and double click the second idle file. What I get is, in this case, I found the one that opens up what we're going to call the idle shell. Not two windows, but one, and it looks white. That is the file that I want to make a copy of. So I right-click it and copy that file. Now that I have it copied in memory, I'm going to go into my Python class folder and I'm going to paste that file. Now this isn't a shortcut, it's actually a copy of the file itself. And this is very important, this idle file, so I'm going to rename it and capitalize it IDLE so that it stands out. It can be easily found when we have a whole bunch of other files that have the same icon in our folder. We're going to go back to the instructions and see where we are. In the instructions, we navigated to where we installed the Python language. We want to find the Python folder and make a shortcut to it and place that shortcut into the Python class folder. We did that. Then we want to find the idle.py file, usually in the Python lib idle lib folder, and then run the two with the same name to find the one that produces only one window. We did that. Make a copy of it, not a shortcut, and put the copy in the Python class folder, which we did. And we renamed the file with capitals IDLE so it can be easily found. We're almost finished. Finally, we double-click the idle file to start the language interpreter and participate in a long tradition and type the line, print hello world. Congratulations, if you were not a programmer before, you are now, when we write that first line of code. This is what the idle shell looks like. It's a window that's mostly white. This is called the command interpreter. I can type commands into this window and the Python language will read them and attempt to follow that command or execute that command. This window can be closed with an X and open by double-clicking on idle. IDLE stands for Integrated Design Language Environment. And the first command, to follow a long tradition, is the print function with parentheses at the end, and inside those parentheses a quote, and that quote, hello world. If we go to the end and press enter, the interpreter will read that and attempt to execute it if it makes sense in the Python language. And it does.